Light responds to us when we are oracles of God, when we are, not when we say something, but when we are. And what I feel that's coming from this is a state of being, not something that we're just doing. And I think that's really where God is trying to bring the sons to a state of being, a state of consciousness, a state of awareness, a state of identity, where that's who we are. So we are an oracle, not just because we say something, but because we are, and I think that for me has been something I've been learning a lot over the last couple of years, but very much that creation responds to us when we are. It doesn't respond to us when we're striving to do. And everything flows and just is when we're in that state of expanded awareness of just being. And I know going back over years, the Father has had to take me through many, many stepping stones and levels of being, I remember back in 2010, first time I'm in the Father's garden, I'm just floating, and I just so trying not to do anything and so struggling not to do anything because I just didn't know how not to do things. And he just wanted me to be. And I remember him saying, I just want you to be. And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, I don't know what you mean. I am, what I'm trying to be, but I was trying to be, I was trying to do something to be. And I was so confused, and I remember that I started to be suspended in the Father's garden, not touching the ground, just suspended in the midst of the atmosphere. And even in that, almost disconnected from everything, I started to rock. I was like, I started to move and rock because this is nice. And I started to rock, and he just looked at me as if, what are you doing again? And I'm like, nothing. I just didn't get it, But he was very gentle, and he wasn't in any way condemning. But I sort of realize now how little I knew back then of basic things now of understanding being. And I remember the first time I ever spaghettified and connected to creation was when I was floating in the Father's garden, and I did come to a complete stop. I didn't do anything, and immediately all the fragments of my being just connected in a quantumly entangled way with creation, and I felt creation's need, and it was awesome, and that was the first one of now many encounters like that, which have now brought me to a point where being is so normal now, where it was totally abnormal back then because I hadn't been deconstructed. I still had the religious mindsets of, well, you have to do stuff and you got to serve God and you got to please God and you got to, and all of that was part of my religious programming and cultural programming to, you have to do something. And over the years, just having gone through that process, gone through the deconstruction of my thinking, of the need to do, and the need to please God rather than, well, I'm already pleasing to God because I'm his son. All of that has been a long journey, many, many steps on that journey to just learning to be and so enjoying being at rest without any need to do. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do anything, but being affects things so much more than me trying to do something. As you say, being light, we are beings of light, and we can release our being to connect. I mean, there's so much more to this state of awareness and enlightenment that we all probably have still got to go into, but it's just a wondrous state when you're in that place where you just are, and there's no thought. I can remember going through some times where it's like the Father was trying to get me to that place of rest where I wasn't thinking either, because it's so hard not to think, isn't it? particularly if you're in that place where what's God doing? It's like, whoa, this is really good. And you sort of, and you're trying to figure it out, and you're trying to understand it, and you're trying to think about it. And he had to get me to dial it down, how to dial down my thinking to the point where I don't need to think, I just am. And then at that moment, there was this infusion. I guess that's sort of what cardiogenosis really is, that infusion of I just am. And now I know something without having to think about it. I know it now because I am it. And going through all of the creative processes of learning to brood, engage the cradle of life in a brooding sense, and coming to that place where I'm in total alignment. I am that thought that God has shared with me. I am so in agreement with it that I am that thought. That now I am an oracle because I am that thought. I haven't said anything, but I am it. And I am the sound or the frequency of that thought. And now I am his voice without having to, practice what I'm going to say or think about how to say this or how to frame this or how to do this. I just am it. And light responds to me when I am in that state of being. When I'm trying to get light to respond to me, to change some reality or whatever, it's still in that, how do I do? I'm trying to do this. I've got to choose this. And my thinking is trying to engage it rather than being at rest and it manifesting because I'm in that state of being. And it's taken me a long time to learn that. And the Father's been so patient in teaching me by just helping me to dial back the doing and the need to do and everything to being. And I can accomplish so much from a state of being more than I could in a state of doing. So much more. And creation responds to me. I realize that I'm so much more connected to creation when I'm in a state of being than when I'm trying to do, because creation was in bondage to the doing. It's in bondage to the corruption of the doing, and a sort of DIY tree process of independence from God. And as soon as you stop doing, then the independence of me accomplishing this and then having some reward or having some value on me because I've done this just sort of is no longer necessary. And I found the creative process is so much easier from being. And then I can feel and sense emotions and empathize with sentient and non-sentient things, which are all sentient in a sense, in a way that I couldn't before, because now I am at that point where I am connected. I am one with, So I sort of get what you're saying, and it's a beautiful thing to be in that state, and just to be. That's for me now the place of being. I dwell, abide, rest, remain in that. I never want to come outside of that. Because that's actually who I am. And creation is waiting, longing for the revealing of the sons of God. That's what is revealed, the light of our being. Not all the doings and our accomplishments and anything, just the light of our being revealed will bring about the freedom that creation is longing for and needs, and its restoration. Because we are. Because we weren't, it hasn't been. And that's reality. It has been subject to do this because of us, primarily walking that independent path. And now when we come back to that place of dependence and intimacy and oneness and union of just being, then the connection with creation begins to be restored, and it relates to us in a different way. We feel it. I feel it. I communicate with it in a way that I never could before, because I was never in a state of ever being able to be connected, because I was always so busy doing stuff. you know. So yeah, I think that's awesome, and I think there's so much more for us to realize when it comes into that awareness, consciousness. You know, we think of expanded consciousness as knowledge or information or understanding or wisdom, and it does encompass all that, but all of that comes back to a state of being, not, oh yeah, I have more knowledge now. No, I am more aware now of being, you know. And that's how it's worked for me over this period, and yeah, I guess a long journey really, but